Hello everyone, welcome back to the Pro MMA Betting Podcast. We're going to talk about UFC Boston this weekend, this Friday actually. For those of you not aware, it is Friday, very rare for a UFC event to be on Friday. So we're going to break that down. As always, we're just going to do a quick recap on how we got on the weekend. I wasn't in love with the card just passed for betting. I made some kind of personal plays on the side that actually came in for me, but the only official tip on the UFC card was Max Griffin for 1 unit, which unfortunately didn't come in. I thought he was going to use his wrestling far more. He didn't use it until round 3, and you saw in round 3 how much he controlled the fight when he actually utilised his wrestling. So we lost 1 unit on pre-betting. However, most of our pre-betting action was concentrated on the Bellator Milan card. I capped Stefano Paterno versus Ashley Reyes before lines came out. I was familiar with both anyway. I had a feeling I'd have a strong lean towards Paterno, so I just untape on them two. I wasn't expecting lines because we got to, I think it was Friday, maybe even Saturday, and the lines weren't out, and then all of a sudden they came out, and Ashley Reyes was a big favourite. He was like minus 250. I couldn't believe Paterno was sitting at almost 2-1. So I tipped 2 units on Paterno to members. I didn't actually think I was going to be able to get the money down myself because it was only Bet365 and 5 dimes that had the lines. But William Hill actually opened them on the Saturday, so I shot down to the shop. We use £1,000 per unit, so I managed to get a couple of grand down on Paterno. And I capped him as the favourite. I capped him about minus 200, and I think that's how he looked, possibly even a bigger favourite. Really dominant display. We also had a unit on the Melvin Manhoff Yannick Bahati fight ending in under 1.5 rounds. That cashed as well. So overall on pre-bets we took home just slightly under 2 units profit. And across the weekend there was boxing on Friday, there was UFC Saturday. Regarding live betting, we took home about 5 units profit. So for the weekend, members on pre-bets and live betting took home about 7 units profit. So really good weekend, very profitable weekend. Ironically, the Max Griffin bet was the only prediction I got wrong on the podcast last week. I went 11-1 on the UFC card for predictions, and the only bloody one I get wrong is the only tip that I made to members. How ironic is that? But luckily Bellator really made up for it. Had a really good Bellator event. I'm not in love with this card coming up for betting either, to be completely honest. We'll go through it as I talk about each fight individually, and I've basically done the Singapore card as well, and the Singapore card for me is, in our opinion, the one of, if not the worst card of the year for betting. I honestly don't think I'm going to have a pre-bet on the Singapore card. We have got a couple of bets on this Boston card, but the Singapore card actually looking unlikely that I'm going to have a bet. And yeah, I've nearly done the card. So yeah, these cards just haven't been the strongest for betting in our opinion lately, but we still made profit, which is the main thing. For Singapore, we're probably just going to concentrate on the live betting aspect. But Boston, as I said, we've got pre-bets. Just so you guys know, I pride myself on transparency. All of our bet slips and stakes are posted on our Twitter feed so that you can see we are betting what we're tipping. We are not paper traders. We are actually putting our money where our mouth is. Everything, bet slips, stakes, posted on Twitter for complete transparency. We also claim to be the world's highest tips MMA tipster, and the bet slips and stakes back that up. I haven't seen anyone else that is offering a betting service on MMA offering those kinds of stakes. So everything is very transparent. All of our bets are third party tracked. Pre-bets are third party tracked using Bet MMA. We often use boxing and UFC doubles. They can't be tracked on Bet MMA, so we've got a separate betting.gs page for that, and all of our live bets are tracked on betting.gs as well. All links to the free trackers are below this video. If you go to prommabetting.com, there's a direct link to all 3 trackers on there. Members that bet £100 per unit or $100 per unit are 10,000 £10,600 or $10,600 in profit in 2019. So we've had a really good year so far. 2.5 months left, so hopefully we can finish off on a strong streak and really solidify that profit and start afresh in 2020 and aim to beat whatever we end up on this year. I'm doing a special offer at the moment, guys, for the live betting tips. It's £150 for 12 months. It's free money. If your unit sizes are a decent amount, you're going to make that money back possibly over the first couple of shows that you live bet with us. It's easy money, guys. If you need help with your live betting, you want some tips, look at our tracker, look at our results for this year. I think we're 86 units in profit for live betting. It's easy money. If you want some help, £150 for 12 months, you're going to make that money back easily. If you want pre-bets and live betting, so both aspects of the service, it's £195 for 12 months. Again, you're going to make that money back very quickly unless you use really tiny units. I'd say anything, if your unit size is at anything £10, $10 or above, it's worth utilising the service, and you can see that from the results this year, guys. This weekend we've got live betting on Friday for the UFC, and also there's a big domestic UK boxing card on Saturday. Kicks off 7 PM I think UK time Saturday. We're going to have live betting for that, so we're going to have double whammy again with boxing and the UFC. So let's hope we can really solidify profit on the live betting, and hopefully our pre-bets cash on the UFC Boston card, so we can have another strong weekend. If you are interested in those discounted packages, DM us or drop us an email. Website hasn't been upgraded to the new packages, so contact us directly. You can pay via PayPal. You just send it to info@prommabetting.com. Any questions, as I said, DM us, email us, even shoot a comment on the bottom of this video. Please like the video, guys. Trying to get the subscribers to 1,000 by Christmas. So if you want to hear a breakdown with a different twist, we talk more about the odds and where there's value as opposed to a lot of the other podcasts that are just prediction podcasts. Please recommend it to friends that are interested in betting and so forth, and hit that subscribe button. So let's talk about the Boston card. As always, we're going to work our way from the bottom up to the top, see if we can find any value along the way. As I said, not in love with this card for betting. There's a couple of bets with members. We got in early before odds worsened, but let's work our way through and see what we can find. I'm not sure where the Brendan Allen-Kevin Holland fight fits on the card, guys, so I'm just going to talk about it first. So we've got Brendan Allen taking on Kevin Holland. Brendan Allen, fresh off a win on the Dana White Contender Series. He's only 23 years of age. He's been fighting for the last 4 years, so he's been around a long time. He's been in there with some decent opposition already. He's been 5 rounds with Eric Anders a couple of years ago now, so he was probably only about 21, maybe even 20, and almost 2 years ago with Anthony Hernandez. He lost both fights, but great experience at a young age to go 5 rounds with those guys. Clearly pretty durable guy, tough to finish. Looked impressive on the Contender Series, took a comfortable victory. Fight prior to that, it was a 5-round decision win for him. So the guy's, he's got a good gas tank, he can go 5 rounds. Pretty decent prospect. He's taking on Kevin Holland here. Kevin Holland is a very talented guy. He's very tough, but he's a very, especially if you bet on him, he's a very frustrating individual. Fight IQ not the best. He kind of messes around in there. It's quite bizarre. I don't know if he does that just to try and help him relax, stop the nerves. I don't know, but it's just a unique style. He was on the Contender Series as well. Took a very unimpressive win against Will Santiago. Came in on, I think it was short notice against Thiago Santos, and he gave him a decent enough fight and went 3 rounds with him. Not many people last the distance with Thiago, and he got a comfortable win over John Phillips, and then split decision win over Gerald Meerschaert, where he didn't deserve that decision. Gerald probably feels really hard done by at the moment after that loss to Anders as well on Saturday, that he probably should have got the nod in. He definitely should have got the nod there. And then the Cherico fight, again, you could say was fortunate to get that decision. So My advice to bettors is do not bet Kevin Holland as a favourite. I just don't think he's a trustworthy guy. I mean, you can, if he's an underdog, by all means look at him, but looking at the line here, he's a -165 favourite. There's no way I'm betting Kevin Holland as a favourite. It's a fight that I don't really have a particularly strong lean on, but if I was going to bet it, it would definitely be Brendan Allen at +145. Let's look at goes the distance, because they're both tough guys to put away. The fight goes to a decision is sitting at -175 at the moment. That's probably the play I'd be interested in most. Again, not a big bet either way, but if you want to bet on the money line side of things, I don't know, maybe half a unit Brendan Allen, but half a unit on fight goes to a decision, or you could take over 2.5 rounds, which is sitting at -200. I mean, they are middleweights, so there is a higher percentage chance of a finish, but then perhaps the lower weights. But when you put these two together, Holland is very difficult to put away, but he's not shown himself to be a finisher either, not at the UFC level anyway. And Brendan Allen's a tough man to put away. He's been in there, he's been 5 rounds. I think for me, there's a little bit of value there on the over, and the fight goes to a decision. And if you're going to stab the fight, I think Brendan Allen, I'm going to pick Brendan Allen because this is a betting podcast. I bet based on value, and I think the value is on Brendan Allen. It's not a confident pick. I don't necessarily think he's going to win this fight, but if I had to bet it, I think the value's on Brendan Allen. And for me personally, if I do end up having a bet on this fight, it will be either on the over or the fight going to a decision. If you wanted to get even cuter, you could look at decision lines. Holland to win by decision +145, yes, on that. Allen to win by decision is +290. That's got value, man. That has got value. If you're going to bet Brendan Allen, I'd even be. I don't normally like getting cute with prop plays, but especially when you're betting on an underdog. But I just don't see him finishing Kevin Holland. I think +300 almost. And there's some value there. So I think if you like Brendan Allen here, sprinkle on the money line, sprinkle on the decision. I do like that decision line quite a lot actually. So I'm going to go at Brendan Allen to win a decision here, but not a confident pick. But Allen for the decision. Next fight is in the men's heavyweight division. We got Daniel Spitz taking on Tanner Boser. I bet Tanner in his scheduled UFC debut against the Brazilian guy. I think the reason I was on, it was only a small bet, like 1 unit, but I think I was on Tanner there just purely because the Brazilian was more of a grappling kind of guy. Wasn't really going to look to stand, I don't think. This is going to be a stand-up fight. Tanner should get the job done, but he is low volume, and he's not really a finisher either for considering they're heavyweights. Spitz is not great. We've seen him in the UFC a few times. He's been out of action for a while. I don't think we've seen him for around a year. A couple of years since he took the Mark Godbeer beating, and yeah, it's been a while since we saw him against Walt Harris when quite a slow fight through the first, almost 2 rounds, and then Walt caught him towards the end of round 2 with a huge, I think it was a right hand, and finished him off. Tanner's -140. I mean, it's a gun to my head, I'd bet that, but in all honesty, I quite like the fight going. It's started to be bet up a little bit. The over's -175. It's at 2.5 rounds, which is always risky with heavyweights, but I see this going to a decision as well, and the fight goes to a decision -155. That's my favourite play on this fight. I mean, it is heavyweights, so how safe it is, I don't know, but I think for a heavyweight fight, it's about as safe as you can get in terms of it going to a decision. So -155, fight goes to a decision. I think that's a solid play. Haven't bet it yet, but it's definitely I don't think any books have got the lines. I need William Hill to drop it, which they haven't yet. I don't think it's not shown on odds, best fight odds anyway. But yeah, for me, the best value on that fight is fight goes to a decision at -155. In terms of prediction, I will take Tanner to win by decision, but I'd rather, for the sake of paying an extra 0.15, I'd rather just take fight goes to a decision, I think. So that's my best bet on that fight, and prediction is Tanner decision. Court McGee, Sean Brady next. I watched Sean Brady's last fight. It's available on Fight Pass. I mean, nothing really stood out, but he seems a competent guy. I expect him to probably look improved in the UFC. A lot of guys that come from the regionals look better in the UFC than they do on the regional scene. You know, they're in the big stage. They've got extra impetus. They're extra motivated. Court McGee didn't look good in his last fight against Lima. I think he might be on the slide now. He's starting to get up there in age. He's Court McGee. He's 34 years of age now. He's 35 in December. He's had a lot of injuries, and he's got a tough style to maintain. It's all about kind of pressure and a high pace and being durable. And I just didn't really like what I saw against Diego Lima. I mean, he was coming off that decent win over Alex Garcia, but I think he might be on his way out cold. Didn't really set the kind of pace that he normally does either. So I mean, it's not an overly confident pick. So I don't know a great deal about Sean Brady. I'm just going off of seeing his last fight, but he seems fairly well rounded. I think the younger man's just going to prevail here. The younger, fresher guy. Court McGee is extremely tough to finish. Ponzinibbio is the only guy that's ever been able to put him away, so it's again highly likely this fight goes to the scorecards. Brady on the regional scene, he's 50-50 on kind of inside the distance and decision win, so he's not a huge finisher, so I definitely see this hitting the scorecards. Money line is Brady's minus 225. I'm not sure I particularly chomping at the bit to bet that, because I just don't have a full read on his skill set, and I'm kind of in limbo as to where his Court actually at. I think I prefer fight goes to a decision again at minus 230. I don't like that I like fight going to a decision for 3 in a row, first 3 fights of the night, but I think I'd rather take that than the Brady money line, to be honest, because Court's always been very durable. Brady isn't a massive finisher, and it's minus 230. I think if you're going to make a play on that fight, I think that's a potential parlay leg. Nothing big, but I think that's definitely a parlay leg. So let's see if this trend is going to continue with fights going to a decision. But I'll take Brady as well to win there by decision. Next we've got Randy Costa, Boston Salmon, which I believe will be the first fight that's available for live betting. So guys that are looking for live betting tips, as I said earlier, 150 for 12 months, £150 for 12 months live betting tips, and we're going to get live betting on I think 10 fights. This might be a fight that ends inside the distance actually. Randy Costa is very aggressive. I mean, there isn't much tape on him. You can see a couple of his regional fights, and they're very similar to how he fought in his UFC debut against Brandon Davis. Just came out of the gate like a ball in a china shop in round 1, trying to get the finish. He hurt Brandon Davis a couple of times, but he really needs to refine his game. He needs to be far more measured. He kind of started blowing out of his arse because he'd gone for the kill and didn't get the finish. He just needs to calm down in there. You know, you're in the UFC now, you can't come out and just be blowing people away, especially at bantamweight. It just doesn't happen. Not every fight anyway, so I need to see some adjustments from him in this fight. If he comes out like a ball in a china shop again, if he doesn't get that quick finish, he's probably going to end up getting picked apart. It's a tough fight for me to bet because Boston Salmon, the last fight lasted 25 seconds, so for all intents and purposes he's had one fight in 3 years. I don't know where he's at, but he does have that boxing background. He is the more technical guy. I think if he survives the first round, it's probably his fight. People that got Boston at either money or even as the underdog definitely got value there. I think at current price it's a complete pass. Salmon minus 170. Costa is dangerous, and it's a good live bet fight, especially if Costa does come out and throw the kitchen sink at him in round 1. He starts to slow down, so definitely look for that on live betting. There definitely could be a finish in this fight. Fight doesn't go to a decision, is actually favoured. I can't get behind a bantamweight fight finishing inside the distance at a minus number, or in layman's terms, to be a favoured outcome. I mean, I know Costa's never been to a decision, but still, they're still bantamweights. I mean, look, Costa's he's probably going to come out like a ball in a china shop again, and end up slowing down and start getting picked apart if he doesn't get that early finish. So I could totally see why people would be on this finishing inside the distance, and I know it was at plus money because some people I speak to were talking about it, and it was, I think it was like plus 130 or something, but the odds are flipped now, so I can't get behind that. Kind of a pass fight for me, really, this one, with the way the lines have gone. Like I said earlier, if you got on Boston at a plus number or even money, good bet. I mean, I'm not even tempted to bet Costa now because I just think he seems like a round one or bust fighter unless he comes out and just shows much more composure. So I'm going to go with Boston Salmon here, but it's not a confident pick because, as I said, for all intents and purposes, he's had one fight in 3 years. But as long as he survives early, he should take over. So I'll go with Boston to get the W here. Either kind of mid to late stoppage or a decision win where he probably controls the second and third rounds. Next we've got Kyle Bochniak taking on Sean Woodson. Kyle Bochniak, it's not the best UFC run he's had. I think he's had 6 fights in the UFC now. I scored the Barzola fight for Barzola. I think he was a little, I mean, it was a close fight. I wouldn't call it a robbery, but I thought he was a little bit fortunate to get that decision. Without that win, he'd be 1-5 in the UFC. He's got losses to Charles Rosa, Jeremy Kennedy, Zabit Magomed Sharapov, and coming off a split decision loss to Hakeem Dawodu that was never in a million years a split decision loss. He's taken on Kyle Woodson here, who is making his debut. He's coming off the Contender Series. Got a nice KO victory in a fight he was being dominated in. He's extremely large for a featherweight. He's going to have about a 6-inch height advantage here. He's got an 8-inch reach advantage. He's 5 years younger. But Kyle Bochniak's been in there with some good names. Like I said, he's been in there with Zabit. He's been in there with Hakeem. He's extremely durable. We saw that in that 3rd round with Zabit when he went into just zombie mode on a tired Zabit. His volume's quite low though, Kyle. That's the concern here. Woodson is going to be pumping out volume. He's got a lot of range on him. I don't know how effective Woodson is going to be in the UFC though. He's only had 6 professional fights. Doesn't seem to have much power. I mean, he's got that kind of volume approach and that reach, but it's just real hard to get a proper read on him. He's not really faced anyone. He's had, kind of got pretty fortunate with that win over Terence McKinney. As I said, fight he was getting fully controlled in. But props to him, he pulled out the victory and he got the shot in the UFC. But yeah, I mean, this is a step up in class for him. It's just how does Bochniak deal with the range? But as I said, there's a lack of power there, and Bochniak is very durable. So if Bochniak is willing to take a couple to get inside, try and land some shots, utilise his wrestling, I have to go Bochniak here. He's currently sitting at minus 135. I'm not sure I'm in love with the price. I mean, I do see the fight, another one that I'd see it going to a decision. Bochniak's not a finisher. I don't think he's finished anyone in the UFC. I can't see Bochniak being finished at all. He's very durable. And yeah, he's not been finished. He's been in there with some decent fighters. Woodson, as I said, he's not a massive puncher. The question is, we don't really know how durable he is because I don't really think he's faced much adversity, but I don't see Bochniak really representing much of a finish threat. I mean, he's won his 2 fights in the UFC, and wasn't close to a finish in any of them. We're going back to the regional scene for when he was finishing, and there's every chance Woodson's a regional type fighter, but I think he's probably better than the calibre of opposition that Bochniak was beating pre-UFC. When you kind of look at their records, like the last guy he tapped 6-9, the guy before that 4-6. So again, for me, I think I like fight goes to a decision. Currently sitting at just under -200. Bochniak to win by decision. Where's that? +160. Interesting. Woodson to win by decision, +220. Woodson is not finishing Bochniak. I'll be very surprised. So if you like Woodson, I mean, when you're getting a plus number on the money line, always take at least a percentage of your bet on the money line, because you don't want to get burned trying to be cute. It's happened to me in the past. I never do it now. At least, I don't know, split it. Half your bet on Woodson money line, half your bet on Woodson decision is what I'd recommend there. But I do favour Bochniak here, and Bochniak decision at +160, fairly tempting. Money line -135. Should probably stick to the money line though. Maybe a little sprinkle on the decision. But yeah, I like fight goes to a decision at -195. I like both decision lines depending on who you favour. I do lean Bochniak here. I'll go with Bochniak. I don't think Woodson is, I mean, you could argue is Carl Bochniak UFC calibre. You could argue he's 1-5, but I don't think Sean Woodson is. I think Carl is probably slightly better than him, a level above. So I'm going to go Carl here to win the decision. Last fight on the preliminary card, we've got Manny McCann. Wow, Manny's shot up to -500 now against Diana Belbiţă. Very quick. Diana is a Romanian can crusher. She's not good at all. I was very fortunate. I managed to get in on Molly pretty early, around the -200 mark on Bet Online. I'd done tape on this fight real early, so it was when the lines were first released there, so I managed to get as much down as I could at that particular line. I also put her in a treble in PFL, those 2 legs cash, so I just need her to come in. I've got a couple of grand on her overall, I believe, returning at about -200, so I'm very happy with that. I don't see her messing this up. Diana is the kind of opponent she was the kind of opponent she was beating on Cage Warriors. Step down for her in competition here, even compared to someone like Priscilla, in my opinion. So yeah, I expect Molly to win this comfortably on the feet. She's not a finisher really, Molly, probably a decision, but I mean, Belbiţă is just so hittable. It wouldn't shock me if Molly did end up cracking her, but Molly to win by decision is -130. Yeah, this fight's just a pass now, guys. There's no value on the money line. I actually capped Molly at -500 after I did tape, and that's exactly where she's sitting there, so I think the line's correct. So yeah, Molly McCann all day for me there. Right, we move to the main card now. We've got Darren Winn, first fight on the main card. No, actually, I've missed a fight. Before we get to the main card, we've got Charles Rosa taking on Manny Bermudez. I don't know where Charles Rosa is at in his career, in his aspirations to compete, in his hunger. Let me just bring up his record, because he's barely fought. I mean, I can't remember the last time I saw him. He's 33 years of age now. It's a featherweight. So it's getting quite old for a featherweight. We've not seen him since April 2017, so 2.5 years he last fought. I remember that Shane Burgess fight because the judges, I can't remember if all 3 of them, but at least 2 of them had him 2 rounds up going into that 3rd round. I remember he used the kind of quality was coming from Shane, but Rosa was throwing out a lot of volume, and it swayed the judges. But yeah, I mean, the Burgess fight was his fight before that was like 16 months prior. It just doesn't fight regularly. I mean, you look at him since 2014. He's fought twice in 2015, once in 2016, once in 2017. And now he's back at the end of 2019. I know he's had a neck neck issue that I think's been resolved. But yeah, I just don't really know. I mean, he's back on this Boston card. It's his hometown. You know, is this just like a last hurrah? Just wanted a fight in his hometown. It just, I mean, he's got an awkward style as Charles Rosa. He's not the easiest guy to deal with, but just, I don't think he's in the fight business really anymore. I would not be shocked, win or lose, if he retires after this fight, especially if he loses. Manny Bermudez is young, he's 25, he's been fighting regular. Yeah, he's got his faults, but his stand-up's coming along, it's improving, and he's extremely opportunistic on the ground. Now, Charles Rosa is the BJJ black belt here, but, you know, I don't like looking at your belt rank in MMA. You know, sometimes it's applicable, but here I just don't think it is. Manny's just one of those guys. Probably doesn't train in the gi a lot. I'm sure he's a black belt level. His submission skills are second to none. Extremely opportunistic, kind of like a Brian Ortega. Now, I'm not putting him on Ortega's level, but he's got that kind of submission game. Just extremely opportunistic. He's coming off a loss to Casey Kenny. Casey Kenny's a solid fighter. He's been forced up here to 145, Manny, after missing the weight against Casey. Look, I do see the holes in Manny's game, but I think he is improving. I can see on paper how Rosa could potentially pose problems, but I have to go with a young guy. I have to go with a guy that's been active. I have to go with a guy that looks like he's improving. I just don't know where Charles Rosa is at. So it does make it a difficult fight to bet, because you never know. You could get the best Charles Rosa ever. This game's unpredictable, but just looking at what we can look at, I have to favour Manny going into this fight. The line was pretty close last time I looked. It's actually dropped a bit. Manny's minus 140 now. But I just don't really like the fight for betting, just because I don't know how Charles is going to look. So for me, it's just a pass. But I am going to pick Bermudez. Charles Rosa hasn't. Let's just have a look here. Bermudez has only lost the one fight, not been stopped. Charles Rosa's been stopped once, and that was by Shane Burgos, wasn't it, actually? His last fight. And was it a premature stoppage? I'm just trying to recollect it. I remember there was a little bit of controversy. I don't think I thought it was, but I remember Rosa was arguing the case. But I mean, it's highly unlikely Manny's going to put Rosa away on the feet. If anything, it'll be a submission. But Charles Rosa is very competent on the ground, so I'd be surprised if he can lock up a submission. It would be a good scalp to be able to submit Charles Rosa. So it's going to be a sweaty fight, because there's going to be a lot of scrambling. There's probably going to be submission attempts, but again, I quite like fight goes to a decision, or the over. The under's actually favoured here. Fight goes to a decision is plus 115. Look, as I always say, if you're one of these guys that likes to bet all the fights, for me, if you put a gun to my head and said you have to make a bet on this fight, that's probably what I would take. His fight goes to, or I'll take the over, in fact, because you just have 2.5 minutes less to sweat, and you know, you're splitting hairs over like 0.2 points. So I would take the over if I had to. I'm definitely not kind of saying it's a lock or anything, because there's going to be submission attempts, it's going to be scrammed in, there's going to be parts where you're sweating, but I do think it has a good chance of hitting, probably better than the odds imply. So yeah, if you're looking to bet, as I say, on every fight, for me on this fight, I would be looking at the over. In terms of a pick, I'm going to go with Bermudez. I'm not entirely confident, as I said, because I don't know what Rosa we get, but just based on him being inactive, the injuries. Apparently he's been healthy for a while, and he's not fought. He's decided to fight on the Boston card. It just seems to me like, is it a last hurrah? He's 33, very inactive over the last few years. He's still at American top team, and I know he's been out in Thailand as well, but come on, 33-year-old featherweight has been inactive. It's very unlikely you're going to make some kind of surging run. So I'm going to go with Manny. Well, as I've said, I like the over. I'm going to have to go with him by decision, I guess, but what is his decision line? Whoa, plus 425. That does seem high. I think that's worth a sprinkle as well. Bermudez by decision plus 425. Rosa decision plus 240. Yeah, I mean, I know he's a finisher, Bermudez, but I just think Charles is going to be tough to put away. So yeah, that's an interesting line, that one. But final pick, I'll go with Bermudez for a decision. Right, we move to the main card next. First fight, we've got Darren Stewart, Deron Winn. Anyone that got the plus number on Darren Stewart when he was like plus 130, plus 140, I think he was even plus 160. Let me see what they say on BFO that the line opened at. It's not always accurate though to what the line opened at, because they're saying that his best odds were plus 100, but that's not accurate. He was definitely up at plus 130, plus 140. I'm sure he was even as high as plus 160. I think the value then was definitely on Darren Stewart. It's basically a pick and fight now, and that's how I cap it. The difficult thing to cap here is Winn's wrestling. You've got to imagine he's going to implement it. He didn't against Spicely because he was comfortable standing with him. He did try and take him down in the third round and got stuffed easily, but he'd started to slow down by then. Also against Tom Lawler, he didn't go for any takedowns until the third round. He managed to hit a couple of takedowns, but Lawler managed to get back to his feet pretty quickly, and he ended up getting on top again. Lawler actually stuffed a takedown, but then he jumped the guard attempting a guillotine. I just get the impression that his top control's not the best wins, and it's just going to be interesting just to see how he approaches this fight, because last two fights he's wrestled in the third round, or attempted to. Is that because he's worried about his cardio? Does he feel comfortable kind of wrestling for 3 rounds? Because I don't think he's going to be able to take Stewart down and hold him down. Stewart's going to keep getting back to his feet. We saw it against Edmund, that he couldn't really get him down. He was kind of held against the fence for pretty much the first 2 rounds, and it actually ended up gassing Edmund out. So it's just, I wonder where Winn's cardio is at. It just makes, I just don't know. It's a hard fight to call in the sense of what his game plan is going to be, but you've got to imagine he's going to wrestle more, because I mean, Winn's extremely small for a middleweight. He's got no reach. He's very short in height. He's like 5'7". I don't think he's really got much power. I think on the feet, Darren Stewart is going to win this fight, and you know, Eric Spicely was even having some success with Winn and actually seemed to stun him a couple of times. I think Stewart, there's a good chance of putting him away unless Winn comes out here wrestling. So I've got to imagine he does try and wrestle, but whether he can do that for 3 rounds at a high pace, maintain his cardio, when, you know, I saw him slow down against Spicely, it was a striking match, so, you know, it's something that maybe is a bit foreign to him compared to wrestling, where maybe he is more comfortable and maybe he can hold his cardio. But if not, yeah, it's just it's a hard fight to predict. But on the current line, I don't have a lean, but you know, if money starts coming in on Winn again, Stewart starts shooting up to that plus 120, plus 130, plus 140 territory, I think the value's definitely on Stewart. So I'm going to pick Stewart here for the victory. But I am going to be interested to see how Winn looks, and if he is a guy that can implement his wrestling across 3 rounds. But I'm definitely not particularly high on Deron Winn, and I'm definitely looking to fade him. The Edmund fight is a little bit off-putting, but whether Winn can implement that, I don't know. But Stewart has definitely improved. He trains full time now, and you can see that he's improved since he made his debut in the UFC. He's making strides. He's very strong physically. He hits hard, but his wrestling's kind of been his Achilles heel. But whether Winn can implement it, I don't know. But I'm going to pick Stewart here, but I'd need a better number to bet him. Next, we've got a very intriguing women's fight. We've got Gillian Robertson taking on Maycee Barber. Really annoyed with myself on this one, because Gillian was at like plus 160. Maybe Darren Stewart wasn't at plus 160 actually. Maybe I was getting confused with this fight, but Stewart was definitely at like plus 130 kind of range. But yeah, I really wish I'd bet Gillian, just blind bet her, because this line was always gonna move, so I could have bought out if I didn't like her after tape. I think now the line's probably, you know, I think it's a pick and fight basically. Gillian is going to dominate if she gets this fight to the mat. On the feet, the worry is Gillian just kind of wilts from Barber's barrage. Gillian doesn't have good stand-up. She's not got any power. She's going to be in trouble when this while this fight lasts on the feet. We haven't seen Maycee Barber's takedown defence for a while, so has it improved is the question, because on the Contender Series it didn't look great, but we're going back a couple of years, so I mean this is striker versus grappler, 100% kind of old school kind of stylistic matchup. I don't give Gillian a chance if this is on the feet, and I don't really give Maycee much of a chance if this hits the mat, so real hard fight to call. I was eyeing inside the distance before odds came out, but the books are aware of the likelihood of this finishing inside the distance. If it doesn't go to a decision, it's basically minus 250, so it's a complete pass. The over is set at minus 140. I'm not even liking the over here, to be honest. I just honestly think that Maycee's in trouble on the mat and Gillian's in trouble on the feet, and the finish could come at any point. It's a tough fight to call. I definitely would have bet if Gillian went back to plus 150. I'd definitely take some sort of bet on her. She's still the underdog. I'm going to pick Gillian here. I'm not confident because if she doesn't get this fight to the mat, I think she's going to get wilted. But I just don't know how good Maycee Barber's takedown defence is. We just haven't seen it for ages. You've got to assume it's improved, but I just don't know if it has. It's kind of you're making an assumption that it hasn't, or even if it has, not to a degree where Gillian can get the takedown. So it's just I'm really looking forward to this fight. It's very intriguing. I was really hoping money weren't going to come in on Barber. I thought she had the hype and so forth, but bettors are getting better. They're aware that the ground game unproven for a long time. Takedown defence hasn't been great historically, and Gillian's very good on the mat. So I'm going to pick Gillian here. I'm going to pick her by submission, but if she can't get this fight to the mat, she's in all sorts of trouble. So the one thing I am worried about with Gillian here is her panicking on the feet, especially if she kind of tries to hit takedowns early and isn't getting them. Really hope she doesn't go into panic mode and start hitting like panic shots, because they're never effective shots. I mean, it's women's MMA, so maybe it would work, but I just don't want her to go into panic mode. So she's got to try and time these takedowns correctly. Let Barber's very aggressive. Let Barber come forward, try and time coming underneath, hit a nice takedown, and I think Maycee will be in all sorts of bother on the mat. So I'm gonna go with. I'll pick Gillian, but I would like a better plus number to actually better. Are the submission props out yet? Or the worry is she could finish with no, we've only got inside the distance at the minute, so Barber inside the distance is plus 140. Gillian is plus 215. Oh, that's quite tempting. Gillian inside the distance plus 215. Can I see her winning a decision here? Possibly. I guess if she can't finish Barber and just takes her down over 3 rounds, but I just think she'll get a finish. That is really tempting. Plus 215. If you like your props, guys. I mean, as I always say though, when the money line is at a plus number, you've got to be careful not to get greedy, because if you bet Robertson inside the distance and Gillian wins a decision, I anyway would be super pissed that I passed up plus money on the money line. So if you're just taking a tiny stab, then fair enough. But if you're gonna be putting down a kind of a half a unit on a prop outcome, I think you should split it with the money line, just so you don't burn yourself, basically, so that if Jill does win a decision, you still win some money, or at least cover your prop bet. So yeah, I'm going to go with Jill, but I'm definitely not confident. Next, we've got Joe Lauzon fighting at home here. I've got to imagine this is his last fight. He's taken it in Boston. Surely retirement fight for him, win or lose. He's definitely a shell of the fighter he once was. He's taking on Dana White Contender Series alumni Jonathan Pearce. I mean, the common outcome, common theme, the consensus opinion on this fight, and it is pretty accurate, is Joe Lauzon kind of sub round one or bust, basically. And I do agree with that, but as bettors we have to be very careful that if we are going to take that approach and we're going to bet Joe Lauzon round one or Joe Lauzon submission round one and bet Jonathan Pearce money line, that all I advise, guys, I'm not saying it's a bad bet, just don't go big on it, because I've seen these likely outcomes not transpire many times, and if you do end up taking that route, you can end up kind of losing a lot of money because you lose on both sides of the bet. So just be careful, just don't go crazy on it. I think it is the most likely outcome. I can't fault anyone for playing it, but like I say, I don't think Lauzon round one props out yet even, but it seems like a path that a lot of people are considering. So just be careful on it, because if Lauzon doesn't get the finish in round one and gets a finish in round two, then you've kind of burned both your bridges. So just be careful. That's just what I wanted to say firstly. But yeah, Joe Lauzon isn't the fighter he once was. He's been in so many wars. He's had over 40 fights now. He's 35 years of age. We haven't seen him for over a year, where he just, the Guttmacher fight was quite hard to watch, actually. He just started bright, just faded, and it's just a common theme for him. I mean, he got stopped by a Clay Guida in the first round. It's never a good look. I mean, he could have got a draw with Stevie Ray, to be fair. But again, like a strong round one, then he just wilted. He got the decision win over Marcin Held. He should have got the decision win over Jim Miller as well. So there are a couple of decent wins, and before that he took out Diego Sanchez early, but just the last 3 fights he's taken punishment in all of them, and he's just not looked good in any of them. He's definitely a faded fighter. I'm not high on Jonathan Pearce though. But what Jonathan Pearce does bring, which is kind of Lauzon's kryptonite, is he does bring a lot of pressure. He'll take one to give one. He'll keep coming, he'll keep throwing. I just see him wilting Lauzon unless Lauzon can get that quick finish, but I don't hold Pearce in high regard. I wouldn't be shocked one bit if Lauzon gets him down and subs him in round one. I mean, it was only 3 years ago where he suffered back-to-back losses to guys that were like 0-1 or 0-0, and I'm sure I read when he was on a Contender Series he had some personal stuff going on and so forth, and I'm sure he's improved. He's at the MMA lab, and it was 3 years ago. Fighters can improve a lot in 3 years, but I just have that in the back of my head, and Lauzon is very opportunistic on the mat, so I'll take Pearce, but I've seen people going like 5 units on Pearce and so forth, and I'm all for fading a fighter when I think they're done, and Lauzon it shows all the signs of a done fighter, but I just don't hold Jonathan Pearce in high regard at all. I mean, maybe he'll come out and prove me wrong in his UFC career, but just his style, extremely hittable. I mean, he does bring that pressure and pace, but that only carries you so far. You need to be, to get far in this game, you've got to be particularly skilled in one department. And don't get me wrong, durability, pace, pressure, it goes a long way in MMA. But he doesn't have that kind of fallback skill either. He's not like he's a great jiu-jitsu guy. It's not like his hands are particularly sharp. So yeah, I'll go with Pearce here. I can't pick Joe Lauzon in 2019, but I also am not really tempted to bet Pearce either, just because round one could be a sweat. I think I mentioned, I can't remember what fight it was earlier, I said it would be a good live bet fight, but this potentially could be a good live bet fight as well. If Lauzon comes out strong, starts to wilt, if the books are a little bit slow to pick up on it, because they historically are. I forgot to mention earlier when I was talking about our profit from over the weekend, that we, on live betting, we managed to get like Mearshart after round 2 at plus 800. It was just absolutely crazy. It was 1 round all, and he won that fight for me as well. Like, members was so unlucky not to cash that. And then Frivola was kind of similar-ish odds at, I think it was at at the beginning of round 3, and I had the fight all tied up going into round 3. And the odds were, even when like Favola dropped Pena in round 3, and the odds were still really high. So books can be slow to react. So if Lauzon comes out strong here, and they don't know historically how this fight might play out, that Lauzon's going to highly likely that he gasses, and that Pearce takes over the longer it goes, the slower they are to react on the lines. Obviously they change the line subject to what bets they're getting as well. So if you've got shrewd bettors that are live betting it, that does adjust the line as well. But if they're not fully aware of what's going on, you can always nab really good odds. So but for me, it's a pass on the money line at -150. I can't hit that on Pearce. It'd be interesting to see what Lauzon round 1 is paying, but just from experience, when you try and get cute with your bets like that, you can get burned. So for me, it's a live bet fight. I mean, it doesn't go to decision. It's only -250 actually at William Hill. Oh, I'd cap that higher, you know. I was thinking in my head more like minus 400. I guess the worry is, does Pearce have much power? I mean, he has got 7 KOs from 9 wins, but that Rosales fight, he couldn't really get Rosales out of there, and I think it was was it a premature stoppage? I'm sure I remember watching it the other day and thinking like it was kind of a bit of a random kind of stoppage, but you need to have much power to put Joe Lauzon away. I mean, Clay Guida put him away, for God's sakes, in his penultimate fight. Clay Guida is not a finisher, but he managed to survive against Stevie Ray, but getting KO'd by Clay Guida is not a good look. Yeah, that's kind of tempting, that is, I've got to say. -250, I thought it'd be higher than that. If it doesn't go to a decision, -250, that's parlay leg material there, guys. If you go back through what we said earlier in the pod with some lines that we liked, I don't know if I've suggested anything for a parlay yet. I think all the lines we liked were fairly good prices just to play straight, but if you are looking for something for a parlay, you're struggling to find a second leg, I definitely think that has value. I'm going to look at that myself actually, -250, but I'm going to pick Pearce here. I think he's going to stop Lauzon. Right, next heavyweight, we've got Greg Hardy taking on Ben Sosoli, Australian chap, on short notice. Very little tape on Ben. You can watch his fight on Ultimate Fighter is available, but he just gets taken. You don't really see anything in it. He gets taken down for 2 rounds and just laid on. His Contender Series fight lasts 2 minutes. You just get a little snippet, and there's highlights of his last Hex fight available as well. Seems to be durable. He's never been finished. He's got a professional boxing record of 3-4. He's been stopped in one of them fights. I think it's just the one he's been stopped in. So he seems like a fairly durable guy, kind of your typical Australasia kind of guy, durable. Taking on Greg Hardy here. I mean, he's been brought in to lose this fight. I did tape on this yesterday because I was thinking maybe Greg Hardy's a bet, but I just came away and my gut was just saying stay away. Now I'm picking Greg to win. He probably gets a knockout, but I mean, Crowder did take what Hardy was dishing out. Now, I think Hardy was going to win that fight still, but Crowder just didn't really have anything to offer on the feet. Ben, it seems like he's alright in the pocket. You throw down, he seems like he can take a shot. Whether he can take what Hardy's dishing out, I don't know. I mean, Hardy's last few finishes have been ground and pound, basically. Him kind of stuffing takedowns and ending up on top. I don't think Ben's going to go for takedowns here. It is going to be a stand-up fight, and we don't know kind of how Hardy takes a shot yet. We've not really seen him hit. So, yeah, I'm not a heavyweight bettor, as regular listeners will know. They make me nervous risking money on them, but I really went into tape thinking, this might be easy money and just looked like a blowout, but I came away just my gut was just saying stay away. Now Hardy might come out and just blow him away, but yeah, I'm not going to regret passing on this fight. I don't know, it's a weird feeling. I don't have a full read on Ben either. I'm not, I'd like to have seen him in a stand-up fight for 3 rounds or at least a couple of rounds, but I mean that's not even available. I mean all signs point to a Greg Hardy win, but I'm definitely not in love with kind of using him as parlay fodder here. It's a pass fight for me. Fight inside the distance. Let's have a quick look, but the odds are going to be crazy. Doesn't go, minus 500. The unders at minus 155. Probably a good bet. The only time I've ever bet a Greg Hardy fight, except for one on the Contender Series, was against Crowder when I bet the under, and I was so lucky that hit. And just Ben does seem pretty durable, so it's kind of got me avoiding it. Even though it's probably likely to hit, but yeah, it's just a pass fight for me. I will pick Greg, but don't know, just saying, feel a little bit uneasy. Co-main event, we've got Jeremy Stephens taking on Yair Rodríguez. So this was meant to happen a couple of weeks ago. I'm just avoiding this fight now. I did manage to get a pal to put a bet on 365 for me when they was first scheduled to fight, because I think it was plus 140 on Stephens to win by a KO or decision, which for me is just the same as the money line price, which was like, I think he was maybe minus 120 or something. It's just crazy that they was offering it. So I got him to put a bet on that for me. But this fight's everything's just different. It's not at altitude. It's over 3 rounds instead of 5. They both had done their camps. Like Stephens had been over in Mexico for like 6 weeks. When you're about to fight, you like to peak, so they was probably both peaking, and then they've had this weird like 3-week interval, so it's like, you have to come down from doing a camp and then you've got to extend it to stay sharp. It's just a weird fight to me now, and I've just got no idea what's going to happen. I mean, Stephens needs to keep his emotions in check. I know he's going to be pretty angry with the way Yair reacted to the fight being stopped and the kind of the stuff he said about Stephens, but Stephens needs to part that and keep professional and not come out and be a wild man. But yeah, over 3 rounds, it kind of puts me off Stephens. I definitely think Yair's got more of a well, it was a close fight anyway, but now over 3 rounds, I think that probably favours Yair. But honestly, I don't know who's going to win this fight. I'll say Stephens, but it's not a confident pick. It's a complete pass fight for me now. I'm not going to get that bet at 365 because I only offer them on main events anyway. And like I said, I took it because I thought I was basically getting Stephens money line at plus 140. That's not an offer now. He's actually a slight favourite. I'll go with Stephens, but yeah, it's not confident. Yeah, could definitely win this fight. Main event is Chris Weidman taking on Dominick Reyes. Very interesting fight this. So we've got Chris Weidman moving up to the light heavyweight division for the first time. His career has been blighted by injuries. He's had a lot of injuries over the last few years. He's 35 years of age now. If we look at how regular he's competed over the last kind of 5 years, he fought once in 2014. He got a couple in 2015. He fought once in 2016. He fought twice in 2017, once in 2018, and this is going to be his one and only fight in 2019. So, he's had injury problems, unfortunately. There's also a strong rumour mill that he was affected by USADA when USADA came in. So injuries, possible USADA, and he's coming off. Well, he's lost 4 of his last 5. 4 of those losses are TKO or KO losses, and even in the win against Kelvin Gastelum, he got dropped heavily towards the end of the first round. I'm not saying he got saved by the bell. I'm not sure if he was that badly hurt, but the bell definitely came at an opportune time for him. The Gegard Mousasi loss wasn't a TKO in the sense that he was kind of put out cold, but look, I wasn't the one taking the knees. I don't want to question someone like Chris Weidman's heart, but just seemed a little bit of a quick job to me. I mean, I could be off there. Like I said, I'm not getting those knees, and I mean, if they did affect him as badly as he made out, then I mean, kind of makes you question his durability even more in a way. So, or did he take the easy way out? Because the tide was starting to turn. He was definitely starting to look tired. The takedowns just prior to those knees were stuffed easily. I don't know, but there's just been a lot of warning signs regarding Chris Weidman over the last few years. Cardio also has been a bit of a factor for him. Now, Chris Weidman's an excellent wrestler. He's got a very good single leg takedown, which you don't really see people have too much success with in MMA, but he's really good with it. And he is fighting Dominick, who's a southpaw, so with him being an orthodox fighter, it does make the single leg easier to grab when you're facing the southpaw fighter, so that is going to be here for him. But it seems to me that he can't sustain a heavy wrestling approach over 5 rounds. I mean, if you look historically over his career, I don't remember the kind of Tom Lawler fights or the Damian Maia fights. I just don't remember them at all. We're going back 7 years now. But from the Anderson Silva fights upwards, he has, except for the Kelvin Gastelum fight, who was a welterweight, he had a huge size advantage over. He hasn't implemented his wrestling game, or if he has, we haven't seen him be able to implement it across the course of a fight. He came out really wrestling heavy against Luke Rockhold. He had a good first round. Tide started to turn a little bit towards the end of the first round, and you could see from round 2 onwards he was clearly fatigued from all the wrestling, because he took Rockhold down about 4 times in round 1. Rockhold kept getting back to his feet, so there was a lot of scrambling. Clearly affected his cardio. Now, the argument is he's moving up in weight now, he's not having to cut weight, but you can equally argue he's carrying around extra weight now. Is this actually going to help his cardio? He did seem okay against Yoel Romero cardio-wise, but wasn't really the highest paced fight. Yoel doesn't push a high pace on the feet. There wasn't a great deal of wrestling in the fight. Yoel had some success towards the end of the second round, just kind of holding Chris down on all fours, but it wasn't the highest paced fight. His cardio looked okay there. Against Gegard Mousasi, you definitely saw the cardio drop off in the second round. First round he was okay, but yeah, it was just prior to the knees you can see that the takedowns were suddenly getting sloppy, and that was a pretty high paced fight because there was takedowns, there was scrambling. Kelvin Gastelum was all one way traffic. There was no reason for him to gas in that fight. If he did, you'd be extremely concerned. But yeah, his cardio was fine there. And then the Jacare fight, there wasn't really any wrestling. It was all stand up, and he didn't gas, but he was definitely slowing down as the fight progressed. And what I didn't like in that fight, and now Chris did look good in that fight, but what I didn't like is whenever Jacare did kind of push forward and throw, he was landing pretty much everything he threw, and then he got put down with an out cold with a temple shot. It's pretty rare that you see someone knocked out cold from a shot to the temple. But he was doing alright in these fights. He had a good first round against Luke. He lost the second round. Luke then gassed in the third round, and I had Chris edge in the third round until he went for that ridiculous spinning back kick and ended up on the bottom. Yoel Romero was 1-1 going into round 3, so it wasn't like he was getting obliterated. He won the first round against Mousasi, but you could definitely see the tide turning in round 2. Gastelum was complete control. Jacare, he won round 1. I think round 2 was it was a tough round to call. Round 2, I think some people had it for Weidman, some had it for Jacare. So look, he starts well. He always has a good round 1, and then things have just started to unravel for him in his fights, basically, when he's gone past round 1. So how's he going to look at like heavyweight? Is the extra weight going to help his cardio where he's not cutting, or is it going to hinder him, or is it just going to be the same where he's carrying the extra weight around? Is his chin going to be any better? I don't think his chin's going to be better, to be honest with you. His chin's definitely declined. He's definitely lost a step athletically with the injuries, and there are the USADA arguments as well. Now on the feet, I think he loses this fight all day. and I don't think he can wrestle successfully across 5 rounds. I think against Hayes, I think he probably will get some takedowns, but Hayes is going to make him work for them takedowns. I think he's going to work his way back to his feet. I mean, Hayes does give his back, but he explodes up very quickly. It's hard to take his back, and I went back and watched a lot of Chris Weidman's fights, and he's not really a back taker. He took Musasi's back briefly. Musasi quickly escaped. He does kind of hold you in that all fours position, and he kind of put one hook in to try and stop you standing up, because you put one hook in, the threat then if you stand up, it leaves the second hook open. But his top control wasn't really great. People were managing to get back to their feet in the fights that I watched. I went back to like the Rockhold fight, the Musasi fight. I mean, he kept Gastelum grounded, but as I said, huge size advantage doesn't mean nothing to me, that fight personally. I personally just think he's gonna, round one, he might need to win this fight in round one with a submission, and I just don't see it. I mean, he's not been. I mean, he submitted Gastelum, but again, I don't really like leaning on that fight because the size difference was so vast. You go back for a submission win, and his last submission win was against Tom Lawler, like 8 years ago. His stand-up's decent, but I just don't think he can cope with Hayes on the feet. I mean, he does have a 1-inch reach advantage, Weidman, but his stand-up's decent, but he's just too hittable for me, and I think he's going to struggle with the power of Dominick Hayes. We know that guy can hit hard. Lovely timed uppercut on Cannonier, put him away. He put OSP away at the end of the 3rd round. OSP was out cold. That should be a KO on his record. I don't know why that's a decision. And then we saw against the inferior opposition, like your Joachim Christiansen just smoked him. The guy can crack. So I just struggle to see a reliable path to victory here for Chris, especially longer this fight goes. The thing with Dominick Hayes is he's got very good striking. He's explosive. He's got very good size for the weight. Very good build for the weight. But there are some questions on his cardio as well. We did see he came out against OSP in round 1 extremely fast. Now, I don't think Weidman could survive kind of what OSP did in round 1, but I think that fight was probably a learning curve for Dominick, because he'd been blasting everyone away. He came out and he didn't put OSP away, and he did slow down in round 2 and 3. We definitely saw the pace drop, but he did set a frantic pace in round 1. Now, that kind of fight's a learning curve for a fighter, because once you get to the UFC, you can't put everyone away in the first round, especially as you step up in level. So you do have to be a bit more patient. Against Vulcan, he came out. Now, Vulcan's a tough guy to look good against. I don't care what anyone says. He's very durable. He's very tough to hurt on the feet. His weakness has always been when you put him on his back, and that's not Hayes' kind of style. It's always going to be a stand-up fight, and I mean, no one's really looked good against Vulcan on the feet. He's just an awkward guy, and he's very tough, and he cracks as well. I think Dominick Hayes won that fight. I think it was very close. I know there's still some people out there that call it a robbery, but it's just insane. Watch the fight and turn the commentary off. The commentators, I don't know what they were thinking, but I remember watching that fight live, and the live betting lines were crazy. I think they was being influenced by the commentary, because they had I can't remember exactly now, but I think Vulcan was like -300-400 in the 3rd round, maybe even -500. I actually pre-bet Dominick in that fight, but I actually added on live bet because I just thought that this is crazy. I thought the clearest round of the fight was round 3, which Dominick won, so that was a plus sign for his cardio. I mean, I know Vulcan slows down, but his cardio has looked better over his last few fights. Round 1, I think I did give that to Vulcan, and then round 2 I gave to Hayes. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's a close fight. I'm not saying that if Vulcan got the decision it would have been a robbery, but I I definitely scored it for Hayes, and I've rewatched it since a couple of times, obviously with no money on the line on the rewatches, so far more impartial, because it is hard to be partial when you're to be impartial rather when you've got money on a fight, because you are influenced by your guy and what he's doing, because you want him to win. But on rewatch I still score it for Hayes, but it was a close fight. So yeah, I mean, I think for Chris, if Chris could wrestle across 5 rounds, then it could be a tough fight for Hayes, but I'm pretty sure he can't. We've never seen him do it, a wrestle heavy approach. I think if he does come out and wrestle in round 1, I think he'll have to take a round off and just strike with Dominick before he can go back to the wrestling. I think he probably needs an early finish here. Dominick started to get better. There are unknowns here because Dominick Hayes' takedown defence is a bit of an unknown. We've seen him scramble against Vulcan and OSP, but he has been taken down by both of them, albeit not for long. He has scrambled up well, and Chris is the best wrestler he's faced, but it's just the fact I just find it hard to see Chris being able to implement that strategy over 5 rounds. If this was a 3-round fight, I'd definitely be a bit more hesitant on picking Dominick Hayes, but over 5 rounds I just favour him. He's up at -170 now. He held at -150 for a long time, but money started to come in on Dominick Hayes, and I do favour him here. But as I said, there are unknowns just regarding that takedown defence, but I just can't see Chris implementing that strategy, as I've said already a load of times, over 5 rounds. Hayes to win inside the distance is -140. There's not much difference to his money line. Weidman inside the distance. I think if Weidman's going to win, it's inside the distance. +200. Weidman decision +430. Hayes decision is +585. I just don't see Weidman being able to take the power of Dominick Hayes. I think he's going to get put out here. I don't know when. It's going to be interesting in round 1. I'm especially interested to see what Weidman's approach is in this fight. I saw an interview with Hayes, and he said he's expecting Weidman to be full on wrestle mode, but I don't think that is going to be Weidman's strategy. I think he will wrestle, but I just don't think it's going to be his strategy to unless he's getting very easy takedowns, which I don't think he will. I think he's going to be made to work. I think he's going to have difficulty keeping Hayes down once he gets him down. I mean, if he can hit easy takedowns and get him down, then if they are that easy like they were against Gastelum, then I think he could do that across 5 rounds. But I just don't see that happening. I think he's going to use a lot of energy. I think he's going to slow down, and yeah, he's moving up in weight. Was his chin jeopardised at middleweight? I'm not buying that. And Hayes hits harder than these guys he's been fighting at middleweight, so I pick Hayes here to win by knockout. So that's the picks for this card, guys. As I said at the start of the show when we broke down how we done last week, £150 for 12 months' live betting tips. Guys, it's free money. Check out the tracker, all bets, third party track for pre-bets and live bets, £195 for the year. You're going to make an investment, guys. We treat this as an investment. It's not I don't treat it as a betting philosophy. It's investing in our money, making a great return. Nothing is going to give me the return on my money that I get from betting on MMA and boxing. There's no investment out there. So if you want to make some money, make a second income, a great opportunity, come and join the team. Drop us a DM, email us, or pop me a comment on the YouTube video if you've got any questions with regards to the service and how to sign up. But good luck with your bets, guys. Hope I helped you all last week as well. I said that I really liked the I can't remember what bet it was now. It was an over bet, I think. Yeah, it was the over on the Meerschaert fight. I hadn't noticed it until I was doing the pod, and when I was looking at the odds, and it was set at 1.5, which when I think we should have been 2.5, and it was like -130 or -140. I know a couple of people tweeted me saying that they'd cashed on it. So yeah, hopefully I can help you this week. I don't think I've got anything quite as confident as that this week, but I know I went over a few fight goes the distance props that I liked, and There was a few other bets that I liked looking through, especially the Lauzon fight to end inside the distance as a potential parlay leg. So good luck with your bets, guys. Hope you cash them. And any questions, anything, just drop us a DM, email, and we'll be back next week to talk about UFC Singapore, that I've already said is a terrible card in my opinion for betting. Probably not going to have a pre-bet on it. We'll just focus on live betting. Normally the shows that are in Asia tend to be really good for pre-betting, for live betting. The last one that was when we got, can't remember the guy's name now, guy that faced the Asian chap that faced the Russian, and we got him on live bet at like plus 500, something ridiculous. So main focus for that card will be that, but I will kind of break down the fights and give my predictions. But from a betting perspective, it's horrible. It's a horrible card as a fan as well, to be fair. So good luck with your bets, guys.